Film. The word brings to mind many nostalgic thoughts, but I'm betting for you it's one of three things. 1. Film rolls for an analog camera. 35mm, 120mm, loading and unloading. Number 2. The movies. Shot on film, projected from reels at the theater, eating popcorn with friends or family. And number 3. You know when you got flowers or a plant cutting in a vase or something in water, and after a few days there's like a layer of film that builds on top? Gross. Today we're just going to talk about the first two examples, okay? So this video went from being another simple photo walk to pretty much being a spiritual journey for me real quick. You know what I'm saying? Initially I was going to make like a tutorial video, but there's so many good tutorials out there. Check out this guy's video, or this guy's. I actually learned a lot from this guy's video. Because I had taken such a liking to CineStill film, I decided to try out some Kodak Vision3 500t after seeing it on a post from someone I follow on Instagram. After a super brief interaction with her about it, I started snooping around YouTube to do some research. So the big gimmick about CineStill film is that it is cut from real motion picture film, what they use in movies. You might think they don't even use real film for today's movies in this digital age we live in, but it really has a specific look that some filmmakers like Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, Wes Anderson really prefer. Some recent movies that are shot on film include the new Star Wars trilogy, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tenet, and even Detective Pikachu. Yeah, really. Somehow they managed to capture Pokemon on film. So going back to CineStill. CineStill's cut from Kodak Vision3 motion picture film. Then they removed this special remjet backing layer of the film so that it can be processed normally. This is also why there's so much of that foggy red halation. The remjet layer protects it from that, but in this case, we love to see it. So this film I'm shooting with is Kodak Vision3. Cut and bulk loaded into a 35mm film canister. I purchased 3 rolls of this from coltonsullivan.com. I thought it was cool that he writes a personalized note with each order. So the big difference between this and a roll of CineStill, besides the price difference, is that remjet layer I was talking about. It hasn't been removed yet, so normal photo labs, if you try to bring it in, they would refuse to develop it, and if they don't notice it's like this, I've heard it could actually really mess up some machines or processes. Unlike normal color negative film that is developed with the C41 process, this has to be developed with the ECN-2 process. So I went out with some friends that night and shot with this, then dropped my film off at my local photo lab with a note saying, "Please process ECN-2," thinking it was an easy adjustment, only to find out that they wouldn't be able to develop it. So I decided it's probably time I learned to develop film myself.
And thus started my arduous journey into film developing and scanning.
I ended up purchasing an ECN-2 developing kit from Colton Sullivan's website. Now, remember, I've never ever developed film before, so I knew I was in for a bumpy ride. I also ended up buying the necessary equipment for developing, including a Patterson developing tank with 2 film reels, a changing bag, measuring cups and funnels, a waterproof thermometer, and luckily I drink a lot of kombucha, so I had some amber glass bottles to hold the developing chemistry in. I started the development process following the instructions that Colton Sullivan provided, but I totally missed the part about a few other additional chemicals that were needed to develop. Something that someone who had already developed film would probably just know already, but luckily I was able to stop myself before I actually used the developer. I was missing the stop bath, which is essential for stopping the developer from overdoing it. I was missing the fixer and a wetting agent as well. Luckily I was able to get all these from B&H Photo, and they were delivered to me in a few days. All I had done so far was remove the remjet layer, so I was safely able to stop the process. I'm just going to cut in here about the changing bag. So whenever I bring up that I develop my own film now, the first thing they say is, "Oh, so you have a darkroom?" And no, you actually don't need a darkroom. All you need is a black changing bag like this, and you cut the film, put it into the tank, all inside this bag, so that it's never exposed to light. Yeah, this is gonna be some shots of me just, developing the film. Okay, and then ready to continue here. So I was able to get the film developed and dried. So the next thing I needed to do was scan the film. I'm going to have to do a separate video about how I scan my photos. So how did everything turn out? Well, let's get to the photo walk part now that everything's ready to be shown. I went out at night again with some friends to shoot in downtown Las Vegas in the Arts District. I love shooting here because there's a good view of the stratosphere and also a lot of really old buildings and neon signs. Also, lots of good little bars to drink at. Gotta love a wild rag in the wind. This is kind of cool. I think I'm gonna take a picture here. Tried getting some shots of this apartment building, but it just didn't work out too well. There were a few cool looking wedding chapels we ran across. I really like this one with the pink Cadillacs out front. By far one of my favorite shots on this roll was this one taken of this notary place. I just remember setting up for this and thinking this is gonna be pretty cool. Also, this Mercedes, another really cool shot one of my favorites from this. I'm always telling people that Vegas has always been a part of my life in so many small and major ways, even though I've only lived here a little more than a year. One example of this is that my parents got married in Las Vegas back in 1989. Seeing these chapels, I was wondering if one of them might just be where they originally tied the knot, but I didn't know the name of the one they got married at. After these, I turned a corner and this rundown, Gucci-styled motel-type building caught my eye. Not sure if it was because of how creepy it looked, all isolated, dark, and fenced off for demolition, but I was drawn to it and I knew I had to take a picture of it for some reason. Crazy thing is, weeks later, after developing the film, I asked my parents where they got married at. Chapel of Love, they said. A quick Google Map search brought me to the exact same area I was at while taking photos. Not to any of the wedding chapels though, but to that rundown, soon-to-be demolished building with the big white sign. I sent them a screenshot of the Google Maps Street View and asked, "Does this sign look familiar at all?" My dad said, "Yep, that's the place." I couldn't believe it. A few weeks later, when my sister visited, I was able to take her to see it, although it was already halfway destroyed by then. About a week and a half later, I drove by and it was completely gone. I know my parents thought it was a crazy coincidence, and I'm sure my sister appreciated being able to see it, but I feel like I'm the one who was most mind blown by all of this. Maybe it really isn't that big of a coincidence, but here's my perspective on it. Without even knowing the location or name of the chapel my parents got married at, I had unknowingly taken a picture of it with the same camera my dad owned from that time within weeks of its complete destruction, and still was able to take my sister, who lives hours away and just happened to be in town, to see it in time. I'll have to continue my story about learning to scan film on the next video, since that whole process was a journey on its own. For now, here's some more pictures I shot on another roll of Kodak Vision 3. I'm really proud of some of these. Thanks for watching.